Hey everybody, Steve G here for Chef Knives to Go. And what we have this time is a pretty big knife. This is the Kohetsu VG10 Damascus Gyuto 270mm knife. Don't see too many of these come through, but this is a great example. So this one has, as you can clearly see here, multi-layered cladding on either side of the core steel. So the core steel is VG10 full stainless steel. Heat treats around 60 Rockwell for that. Good quality stainless steel for knives. You've got a soft stainless cladding that's multi-layered, and they've got kind of an etched frosted character to that. So it's not textured, but you can definitely see the layers. Not a whole lot of texture to it, but nice contrast, a little polish on the whole blade. With, you can see a fair amount of polish here at the cladding line, where the cladding gives way to the core steel, so it's got a fair amount of polish to it. Again, this is a big blade with some heft to it. Weight on this particular one is 277 grams, or 9.8 ounces, so you definitely know you've got a knife in your hand. Handle is a kind of standard black pack-a-wood handle with a full tang and 3 stainless rivets with a nice integrated bolster. We'll get a close-up look at that. Edge length on this one was right on the money at 270mm, or about 10.6 inches, so this would be great for processing larger ingredients or doing larger jobs. Overall length is about 15.9 inches, or 405mm from tip to the back of the handle. And it's not a particularly thick knife. It's got a fair amount of stiffness to it, but it's got about 2.4mm thick all the way down the spine. And not really much taper to it until you hit the grind. And the grind starts, I don't know, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches up. And then you can see it thins out pretty decently at the tip. So not super wispy thin, but you go through stuff pretty nicely. And then here is the edge, or the choil shot at the back. Reasonably thin at the edge as well, so this knife should perform quite well. It's definitely got some heft to it. Height is typical for this size knife. It's about 53.4mm at the back, so there's lots of clearance for your hand there. Let's see. Let's get our beauty shot first, and we'll go into some other options. I'm going to have to, it's a big blade, so we'll bring it down a little bit. So on the right side of the blade, they do have some etched in kanji. And then you can see the cladding showing up with the layers, and there's your core steel peeking out. Again, fair amount of polish to that, so it's got some attention to detail. Here's the left side of the blade. Each one will be slightly different. They haven't done a ton of corner relief or rounding, but they've got enough here where there's no sharp edges on the spine here, and then they've taken a little bit off the corners of the choil into the bolster here where that's comfortable too. This one I'll give it a 6 to 7 out of 10 on my scale as far as the edge goes. It'll get sharper, but it's a pretty sharp edge and serviceable right out of the box if you want to start using it, no problem. Although you could make it sharper. The handle is a full tang. Pack-a-wood is just a stabilized wood product, so pretty resistant to moisture, although I wouldn't let it completely sit. It's not quite as good as something like micarta, for example. But nice stainless rivets. That handle does have some heft to it. Being a longer blade, even with the full tang handle, that does bring the balance point right about there, which for me is pretty darn close to a pinch grip. So if you pinch grip, depending on where your pinch point is, this is pretty neutral from a balance standpoint. So it's almost 10 ounces, but it's got a pretty nimble feel to it despite the blade size, which is pretty cool. But you do have some heft. It does feel like you have a knife in your hand, as I said. Let's see. Let's see what it looks like on the cutting board. Takes up most of the cutting board, doesn't it? All right, so here is the edge profile, which doesn't necessarily mean every knife is going to be like this, but this is what this one looks like. It's got a pretty big old flat spot. It just rolls into a flat. It's not super abrupt, but it does roll into a nice flat that's, gosh, at least half the blade. So this will have a great flat spot in the back to chop with. And then the tip, let's see how high we get with that tip. They've got a little bit of flip up on the edge on that towards the tip, so that's going to go way up there. So this tip will get pretty darn, you can get pretty high. One of the benefits of a longer knife is you do not have to pump the handle so high up and down to do a rock, just because of the geometry and just the physics of it. So the longer blade, you can get pretty high without cranking that handle way up and down like a shorter blade. So that's one benefit. So this will rock very nicely over pretty decent sized stuff, no problem. And if you're doing smaller stuff, again, you don't have to pump the handle so high. One other advantage of a longer blade is if you start getting sections that are dull, you can simply move to a different part of the blade that maybe you don't use so much, like maybe towards the back or in the middle or some spots, and you can start to kind of use up that sharpness with different sections of the blade and extend that time between full sharpenings, or, you know, sharpening the entire blade or touch-ups. So that's one advantage as well. Not to mention, of course, the ability to handle much larger product and process things more quickly or do bigger bunches at a time, etc., etc. So very nice profile that utilizes a lot of areas of that 10.6 inch cutting edge. So if you're looking for something that's high value, that's high quality, it looks nice, all stainless, great for processing large amounts of product or bigger things. It's a pretty one, you know, really nice looking one that you should look at. This is the Kohetsu VG10 Damascus Gyuto 270mm knife from Chef Knives to Go.